Hi. Why don't I hear anything? Let me see. Hi. Oh, here I am. How cute I am with this little avatar. Oh, here I am. Okay, so, all right. At first, hello, my name is Amy, and I'm a writer, artist, hopeful wannabe musician and artist, if you will, and founder of the Circles of Justice, which is a 501c3 nonprofit whose mission is to fight loneliness, isolation, rejection, and bullying. Um, by having social activities and events which resolves a vastly overlooked but painfully urgent need in society, acceptance of the need to belong. And we have weekly peer-run support groups every Thursday from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time via Zoom. You can log in via Zoom, or if you're in person in upstate New York, you could come visit in person. We have all types, various events like we join with other groups and have things from virtual karaoke, real open mic and karaoke, to movie days and movie nights. So in fact, next Thursday, the 29th, oh, that's this week, where we're gonna watch the video of the musical the Six Lives of Henry VIII, Six Wives. Anyway, the reason why I'm using this avatar because I finally downloaded the Zoom app and I'm like messing around and checking all the things out of it, such as these reactions, because on the desktop one, you don't get any of these cool reactions like these balloons, which, you can't get that, or, happy faces or whatever. You can't get any of these cute reactions on the desktop version for other humans to see, first off. Secondly, I think this avatar is adorable. Um, First, I had to put the black lipstick in so you could see the lips. And unfortunately, the arms don't move. But it's a cute avatar. And I guess, let me see. Um, I guess it's good enough, right? It's a cute avatar. And while I'm doing that, I'm trying, one moment, let me look for my video, because why is it not being telling my wife? Not like Sister Odie. You have to forgive me, Rose. One moment, please. Oh, here you go. How does this work? Do, do, do. Okay, I guess I'm back already. Not sure how long that worked, but I don't know why it doesn't show anywhere else. With that said, um, here I am. So successfully connected. Maybe I'll send myself some love. Okay, I guess I'm back already. Not sure how long that worked, but I don't know why it doesn't show anywhere else. With that said, comments are not supported. Here I am. I can't even do any chat or so successfully connected. Maybe I'll send myself some love. Okay. I'm back already. Not sure how that works, but I don't know why. Anyway, seems like I see there's chat, but I'm really just recording this so I can save it or something. It's easier for me to, hey, why isn't it working? Oh, okay, it's back on. See, now I'm just kind of testing it out. Oh, there I am. Anyway, so as I was saying, yeah, so I'm first off, I have the avatar because I'm messing around with it, and I always like to try to create avatars. Um, I don't know how close I look to this avatar. Probably not much at all, especially now. But um, I'm gonna check. But I think it's adorable. I mean, it's about as my skin tone. I do have almond eyes and a little round pug nose, and the lips are it's cute. And I secondly, let me see how close I look like. And secondly, I've always thought long, beautiful flowing skirts, not the ones close to me, because the one I guess they call it pencil skirts, like if you have a full figure like I do, I'm sure it's squat like Miss Teapot. And when you have a full figure, flowing skirts, certain outfits I think flatter the body more. And I'm definitely not a fashion designer, wardrobe consultant, but I think long, pretty skirts with a fitted top look very well on any size. You could be a pencil, a skinny pole, and put a flowy skirt on, and will give you volume and look cute. You could be like a huge woman and a flowing skirt that flows and fluffs with a fitted top, or still gives you definition, because where the hip area is, it goes out, and then it didn't, where your thighs and legs, flows. It's elegant, it's classy, it's feminine, it's beautiful. And then you can have it plain colors or even ugly colors, and the shape of the skirt just flows, and it's very feminine and pretty and flowy. Obviously if you have a bulky top with it, it will look funny, so obviously a fitted top. um but I always thought those were very pretty, and along with headscarves. Now not all headscarves, mind you, like the ones that have the big like some headscarves where they have like if you have a ponytail and you got the bun in the back, it's whatever, like I don't feel like demonstrating it, but like if you like they have headscarves that look whatever. But anyway, like the ones that got the big thing on the forehead, like you got a big ponytail knot bun on your forehead, looks tacky. I don't like that style. I mean, you might just be a unicorn with that horn in your head. I mean, that's just me personally. But the ones that are like this, or the ones that have the bun in the back, like you see a lot of Muslim or Nation of Islam, or Hebrew Israelite, or holiness Christians, where it's fine. Now the Amish women and the nuns, there's well, nuns, the habit is even, that's fine, that's their uniform. But like the Amish, they have that one style which is very traditional, and like that's fine. But I always like the way the like like certain sisters that have the burqas, or the holiness nation, Hebrew Israelites scarves on. They always look very pretty, very feminine, very modest, but still pretty and feminine. And if your hair is a mess, if you have flyaway forehead, you can get away with it, because you don't, if your hair is a mess. And then I know during the pandemic, right when it started, and I know I'm babbling and not even get to the point, but when it first started, didn't have no face mask, because it was like right when it started. Like I remember Friday the 13th was when they closed all businesses for whatever, a year, whatever. And so, no, I didn't wear a face mask at the time. But when I went out, I put on a scarf, and I saw how they did like one of the Muslim scarves where you put it over your face and you pull it back so your hair is back, your face is covered. And I figured I don't have a face mask, but hopefully the scarf would give me some level of security. It wasn't not N95. It wasn't even it. It was like a thin scarf, but I covered my hair, which probably needed to get done, and my nose was covered, which who knows how much. And my hubby was like, "What the? You said you about to get us jumped. You like a Muslim." I didn't even think about that. I was just thinking about, oh, my face is covered, so I shouldn't get no germs. At least it's one thin barrier, and my hair is covered because it looks a mess. So, you know, I thought it was some level of safety, and no one said. A couple of women gave me compliments, uh, um, you know, and I thought it was very pretty. And in fact, when we finally got some face masks, I took the scarf off, and you could see my hair. And even my husband was like, "Oh, you don't have the scarf on today." I'm like, "No, because I have a face mask." And of course, the scarf looks so much better now. Security wise, it's not nearly as protective as a face mask, but it looks so much prettier than a face mask. So, I always think they're very pretty. And very modest, very elegant, very dainty, and very feminine, just like a long flowing skirt. And so that's why I put that there, you know. And I think this avatar is adorable. And I don't have any makeup on. I'm not dressed fancy. I just wanted to post this quick video, or not so quick video, about well, really it's kind of a video I was going to submit to a few Christian channels where they interview other Christians about their experiences and their testimonies. So I'm kind of doing this for my channel and to hope maybe they can listen to it and maybe I could get featured on their channel. Um, and so it's kind of like my testimony type thing. So that's why I'm doing this. And I do ramble. So hopefully if I get featured on their channel, they'll be kind enough to let me do the interview, and then they can take the questions or take my experiences, and being that they're professionals, they could reel me in like a fishing line and say, okay, you're ranting. Okay, how about this? How about that? And they can ask questions and navigate my interview versus having me ramble for 3 hours about a face mask and this cute avatar and not getting to the point. But anyway, that's why I have my avatar up versus me, because I downloaded Zoom. Guessing this is getting recorded to Zoom, but just in case, it's going to YouTube so I can download it and submit it. And hopefully they can check out my videos and reel me in and have a more proper interview. And this avatar is the most adorable, I think. Let me see how that looks. I gave myself a cheese in it. Hey, it hasn't done it yet. For proper interview. And this avatar is the most adorable. Okay, it's really delayed. Oh, so it's quite delayed, like about 3 seconds. Okay, anyway, I'm looking at the TV because my avatar is on the TV. That's why I'm staring at the TV instead of like when I'm looking over here versus now. Anyway, um, the first point, like I guess this is my testimony. I never really bothered to do it. And I actually have a book called Conversations Out of Chaos. And it's literally my memoir and a rant about life and everything else. And I put all my experiences in it and all the crazy and chaotic stuff from before I was born up until after my father passed away, and my experiences with God and this and that and so forth. So I posted that in my book called Conversations Out of Chaos, which you could get on Amazon or Target or wherever, you know, Barnes and Nobles, whatever. You could get it online. And part of the proceeds go toward the Circle's Edge nonprofit, which is a 501c3, and you can help keep us going because we're trying to renovate this dilapidated garage and turn it into a little office space, church, house church praise and worship thingy. So we're actually doing that. So that helps raise money for that. As well, and I'll post the please help us email if you wish as well. With that said, before my mother was born, I'm an only child. I'm from the DC area. But before my mother was born, she had issues with childbirth. And now that I think about it, I think it could be like generational curses, because my grandparents on both sides, my grandmother on my daddy's side had about 1,000 kids. I mean, my daddy had 10 siblings. She gave birth to 10 children. 3 of them passed away. And my daddy and all the rest of them grew to adulthood and, have families of their own. And all of my great uncles, they had like my grandmother and all of my daddy's side in Virginia, and like Orange, Virginia by the Blue Ridge, Appalachia. I guess it's not exactly Appalachia because it's not exactly in the mountains, but it's not far from King's Dominion, not far from Richmond, which has nothing going on. No offense. And well, I mean, there's a lot of places that don't have nothing going on. So Richmond has something going on, I guess, whatever. But it's not far from all of those places. It's in the middle of absolute nowhere. And I remember as a kid, it was a dirt road just to go. Once you got off 95 South, you got on a main road, Route 3, then you got on a dirt road. Hold on, no, there was another road. I know that probably the corner store is about 2 or 3 miles from the house. You can see the neighbor, you can't really see any neighbor's house. All you see is trees, grass, and at night blackness. But they always had farm anyway. My grandma, my daddy's side, she gave birth to 10 kids. Her siblings, oh, I had like 1,000 kids, and her brother has one daughter. I don't know how many kids he had before, but he has one daughter. They passed away too. So my paternal grandparents had a lot of children, and my paternal great aunts. And on my maternal side, my grandmom, she only had mom and my aunt, but she had 2 kids. I have no idea if she had any miscarriage or stillbirths, whatever, but she had 2 kids, and she lived till she was almost 90, about 96 years old. Not one second see now. She knew this when I went to see her in the hospital. She was like, "Oh, since you're at the house, go to the house and get the fish out the refrigerator because it's about to go bad." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." She was drugged up, half asleep, but she knew when I got to the house, she sure enough had some fish that was about to go bad. So she was very on point, rearranging furniture. She was like a Martha Stewart, she was, told me when she turned 90, don't give me any more plant seeds because she didn't want to go in the garden and get on her knees and dig up and so forth. Yet she was still doing it. And she was trying to take the air conditioner out the window at 95. I'm like, I don't even take the air conditioner out my window. But she's trying to do that. And, she was very independent, cooked every day, and then her sister had about 1,000 children. So my grandparents on both sides had children. However, on my mother's generation, my parents' generation, my dad and my uncle, but on my dad's one aunt, the aunt that I look like, they called us twins. She was like a short, light-skinned, heavy-set version of me. And of course, at this rate, I'm just as round and rotund as her, and I'm like 2 inches taller, so it doesn't really count. But she had no kids. I'm not sure if she has ever been pregnant. Even my godmother, she has no kids, but her siblings have lots of kids. My other aunt, she didn't have any kids, and I'm not sure, but I think maybe she had a hysterectomy. I'm not sure. But she has no kids. I know my uncle, well, of course, he didn't give birth, but he didn't even get married. But he had a female friend, a girlfriend, whatever. But and then on my mom's side, my aunt has a daughter. But then I know after that she ended up getting a hysterectomy after she successfully gave birth to my cousin. At least she gave birth to my cousin, but she had a hysterectomy. And my maternal on my mom's side, my grandpa's, my cousins, my mother's cousin, my grandpa's brother, his kid, she doesn't have any children. My grandmother's, her niece, she has no kid. Now her sister has like a rack of kids, and her niece had her, but so it's like people in every sect. And my mom had like 3 miscarriages. No, she had 2 miscarriages and a stillborn before I was born, and the 2 miscarriages trauma. Up with the stillborn, you literally going to carry 9 months, give birth, and the baby is dead. You give birth to a dead baby. That's very traumatic, very, very traumatic. So to give birth to me, she literally had to go on house arrest and bed rest and stop working. And so this is like 3 kids before me, all went up to heaven, stillborn, which is very traumatic. It was a little boy, came, how horrible, by the time he's born, he's dead. So I don't know. I know they had to induce labor. And then when she had me, she had to have a C-section, and she held on me to dear life because I'm the only one to survive. Because after me, she got birth once, she got pregnant again, and she lost that baby as a miscarriage. So I have she had 3 miscarriages and a stillborn. So I have 4 siblings, and they're all up in heaven because then I'm the only one to survive. And then that's just giving birth. So I thought, and I noticed that now, I mean, I have horribly fibroids, and I know a lot of Black women suffer from that. So who knows what type of hormones and injections they were giving us during those eras. But part of it's generational because there's a lot of women Black that have 3,000 kids per hour. So I think it's something generational because my grandparents' generation on both sides, paternal and maternal, had no issue. Neither did none of my great aunts and uncles have any issues. But my aunts and uncles, well, my aunts on my mom's generation and my dad's side generation were having issues. And so maybe it skipped the generation because my cousins don't seem to, well, except one cousin, they don't seem to have an issue. But I know I have an issue. I never but that's a whole nother story. But anyway, I was the only one to be born. And I guess once I was born, let's say I just went on a rant already. So this is probably an 8-hour video. Sorry about that. But after I was born, um whatever, I remember doing different things, but I remember going, we lived in DC at the time, and I guess I was staying with my grandma because I do remember uh 1 and 2 years old. I don't think anyone remembers that much. And I have no idea what I was doing at 1 or 2. I mean, I remember my mom changing my diaper. So I don't know why I remember that. I remember my mom changing my diaper. I remember my aunt made me, my mom's sister, she made me a stuffed pillow toy, and I called it loaf of bread, maybe because it looked like a loaf of bread. And I was crying because I said, I love loaf of bread so much. And my mom's like, why are you crying? So I love loaf. And I was hugging. I don't know why I was saying that, but and my cousin liked her loaf of bread so much, it turned into a string because she called it hers Dolly Wally, and she took it everywhere, and it was dirty, and it was disintegrated, and she kept it. My cousin's loaf of bread doll, she named Dolly Wally, and that was her Linus blanket. She could not go anywhere without Dolly Wally, and if she did, she would scream and cry. So she needed her Dolly Wally, and then I loved my loaf of bread. So I don't know, maybe my aunt put some type of pixie dust or something in there for us to really love her, that stuffed animals that she custom made. But anyway, I remember those things are playing, and I remember looking at the toys or whatever, because I'm an only child, so I had to play for all my dolls. And I remember like looking at those books where you listen to the music and you read the book. And then I was looking at Alice in Wonderland, and I was posing, like I would put on my Sunday dress and pose, whatever. But I don't remember, I don't even know what I could. And I do remember at 4 years old, I made a commercial jingle, probably from listening to something. And I made a jingle called It's a Brand New Day. So I made that jingle at 4 years old, a commercial little song. Not really advertising anything. So really it's just a song. I didn't advertise nothing. With that said, yeah. Oh, and I also remember getting stuck at my mom's friend's house, and she had this stupid dog, Chihuahua dog, tried to kill me. Idiot dog, Chico. And of course, I kept kicking it. And she's like, stop kicking Chico the Chihuahua. And anyone that knows dogs, they know Chihuahuas they're like Freddy Krueger. They try to kill you. Either they're terrified and scared, or they want to kill you. Most of the time, they want to kill you. And so, of course, it kept trying to kill me. And I'm like 3 or 4 years old. I don't want to get attacked by a stupid dog. So my mom, they had me sit on a couch while I guess her and her friend talked about 300 years in the kitchen. And I'm stuck on that couch because the damn dog was literally waiting for bated breath. Come on, get off the couch so I could attack you. I mean, it was literally sitting there waiting for me to get off the couch to assault me. So of course I was stuck on the stupid couch. And the only thing I do is stare at the wall, and they had the sign language alphabet. So I guess I'm sure I was crying, but I guess after I got tired of crying, I learned the sign language alphabet on both hands because there was nothing else for me to do except learn sign language on both hands. So that was productive day of torture with the dog and learning sign. And to this day, I still know the sign language alphabet. Something I self-taught myself at 4 years old, being, stuck. And I guess they figure what a dog is he'll make sure she don't go anywhere because he's waiting for me to, stupid dog had nothing else to do except harass me. So yeah, but those are the things I do remember, or going. And then by the time I went to but I do remember my grandmom's house. I'm staying at my grandma's house with my cousin. I don't know if it was over the summer. No, it couldn't have been over the summer. But I remember we used to listen to Sesame Street albums and playing for Barbie dolls. And she's a year older than me. And I remember that, playing for Barbie dolls, her friends outside and this and that. And I'm guessing I had to be 3. And the reason why I know I had to be 3 is because she was going to preschool, which is 4 years old. No, she was going to pre-kindergarten. I'm sorry. She was going to pre-kindergarten at 4 years old. And I was so jealous because why can't I go to school? That was the first, last, the only time I wanted to go to school. But she was going to pre-kindergarten at 4 years old. And me and my grandma walked her to school. I guess my grandpa was obviously at work. And I guess my parents were at work. And I guess her mom was at work. So obviously Granny was up to babysitting us, me at 3 and her at 4. And so Granny walked her to pre-kindergarten. And then I was so mad walking back. I guess I had an ass mug. I have Asperger's. So yeah, Asperger's syndrome. So I had an assy moment. And that's probably the only time I could think. I have had few before, but I know that time I was mad because I was walking home with her and I kept crying because I wanted to go to school. And so I started spinning real fast like the Tasmanian devil and a ding dong and an idiot in the alley. I was like a retard. My grandma's like, stop doing it, stop doing it. And of course, I was spinning and crying. I'm not sure why I was spinning when I was crying, but I was spinning when I was crying and I fell down and busted my kneecap open. I still have the keloid and the scar to this day because that she was like, that's what you get. I told you to stop spinning. And so I remember that at 3. Yeah, because at 4 years old, I started pre-kindergarten. And, but also with Granny, we would go to church all the time. And I remember she was going to this about nice large church, and it was a black church, and the music was awesome. I remember they hit the ground, jumping and shouting and hooping and hollering, and that music was raw and awesome. I mean, I'm like, I guess 3 years old, but I enjoyed that music, and I guess I'm a college music, and I would be dancing in my seat, and everyone be jumping and shouting and running around, and I was because the music was good. And then of course, time the preaching started, I fell asleep because who knows? But I was going to church thanks to Granny. However, when I went back home, I guess as older, my dad would watch church on TV. He would watch it, listen to the radio, watch it on TV. But my mother didn't like church, whatever that was about. um she was kind of agnostic and she was anti-church because she got burned. I don't know. I guess she had bad experiences going to, like, my grandma was one of those people that had you in church from sun up to sundown 17 days a week. So I guess my mom, when she got her freedom, was like, I'm done with church. And that has Granny making her go to church all the time is not God's fault, but whatever. I don't know. She never went to church, but we would go to funerals all the time. Now, I don't remember ever going to weddings, and she told me, well, I'm not going to take you to a wedding because you won't sit still. But they have kids at weddings, but at funerals, you have to sit still. So why was I always going to a funeral? And I remember I began to get a fear of death because we were always going to funerals. I mean, all these people that I knew were dying. And at the time, I didn't even understand what death was at the time. I remember going there and I didn't even know because I remember went to see my grandpa's, my mother's uncle. We went to his grave, and my cousin, the 4-year-old, was crying. And I'm like, why is she crying? I don't know how. Maybe she was 5. I have no idea. Maybe she was 4 or 5. But she was crying, and I was like, why are you crying? I don't understand. And they were like, oh, because he's dead. And I'm like, okay, but what does that mean? And she's like, oh, well, he won't be. And I guess I was too young to really even know him that well, let alone understand, but I remember, I mean, that's how young I was when I was going to funerals. And in fact, I know I went to my grandma on my dad's side. She passed when I was 3 years old. And I'm guessing, of course, I don't remember going to the funeral at all. But I'm sure I went because it's my dad's mom. It was my grandma, but I don't remember that funeral at all. But I remember going to funerals. I mean, I'm going to funerals with people I didn't even know. I'm sure, because I think my mom took me to her coworker's funeral. And I could have sworn she took me there. And I don't know where Daddy was. Daddy didn't go, but my mom would go. So she somehow took me to every funeral, that a lot, family and friends of hers that I probably didn't even know. And I guess she took me because she didn't want Daddy to babysit. Who knows why? And Daddy would listen to church on radio. He would listen to church on TV. On Sundays, he would always have the church channel on radio. But my mom never listened to the church. And the only time we would go to church is if it was a funeral, because funerals are always held in churches. I'm assuming that's where we went, not to a funeral home. I don't know. My mom, we would go to, and I guess on Easter we would go to church, but again, that's probably with Granny. Like, Easter we would go there, Granny's house for dinner, and Christmas and New Year's. I don't know. I remember, I'm sure I went, every time I went to church was with my grandma. And then I guess every now and then I would go to church. We would go to church as a family. My dad would go, and me and my mom would go. And that's a rarity. Like if there was some special guest or something fancy going on, we would go to church with my dad as a family, me, my dad, and my mom. And if it wasn't Daddy going to a church on a Sunday for some program where it was in a church and they had music and preaching, it was with my grandma. Now, Mom never really went to church, but she was into the occult. And now looking back, I know that's exactly what it was, because she would do palm read. Well, she didn't do palm. She would do, like, what is that thing? Astrology. She was really into astrology. I don't know much about astrology, but she loved astrology, and she was always talking about astrology. She had something about palm reading when I got into high school. I remember as a little kid, and I never played with the toy, and it's not really even a toy. I remember as a little kid, and I know I'm rambling. I'm probably going to think about 3 hours at this point, but I remember as a little kid, we went to the Chinese New Year, which terrified me because oh, it's only 3 minutes ago. No way, I didn't. That's not 3 minutes ago. And I remember I was so terrified of the Chinese New Year because they had those fire engines and dragons. I was scared of everything. Oh, it's been 30 minutes. Never mind. I knew it was more than 3 minutes. They had fire engines, they had dragons, like the Chinese New Year, the dragons chasing you. And I don't know, it was a parade, but I was screaming and hollering because between the loud ass fire engines and probably the firework cherry bomb thingies and the loud bang, they had like cymbals and gongs and drums, and it was so loud. That was probably another Aspie moment because it was like super sound overload. The loud, I hate fireworks now because of the loud booms. I just hate it. I don't like thunder because of it, and I was terrified of the loud fire. It's just torture. It was torture and terrifying, every way, shape, or form. And then somehow, I don't know if she got it there because I didn't pick it out, but it was one of them things. The only thing I know is from the Karate Kid, the first Karate Kid where Mr. Miyagi had that little toy drum with the circle round drum with the stick. It was like a weird ass lollipop drum, and he had two strings with the pebbles, and he would roll it back and forth and say like, I guess it's a rhythm keeper. I'm not sure. A Japanese toy drum, which why would that be at the Chinese New Year? So I don't know. All I know is it popped in the house, and my mom was like, "Here, this is for you," and I'm like, "Oh, ugh, thank you." And yeah, it, I looked at her and played it for like 10 minutes, and it was like, okay, yeah, and you know, it was not anything. I don't know. It wasn't a toy I wanted, and I'm sure it's nothing to it, but somehow as a kid, I mean, I had toys. I love toys. I love stuffed animals. And I had them all in my room, but I don't know what I did with that toy drum. I mean, it wasn't that much. And then somehow something was attached to it. I'm thinking something spiritually. And as a kid, as slum as I am on my car, as blunt as I am, I'm not one to ever sense things unless it's really, really overt and terrifying, like a horror movie or something crazy. But I was not too fond of that toy drum. I don't even know why. I don't even know what I did with it, but I never played with it. It was like one of them things. It was more like a whatnot than a toy. But my mom kept it for years. So how is it my toy if you kept it on a shelf? And she would do all, and then she used to do the pendulum where you would have a necklace. In fact, it was a Hershey Park chocolate. I don't know how old I was when I first went to Hershey Park because I went there once as a kid, or I don't know how old I was. Then the next time I went was like in college, or 30 years later. It was a long time later. But she had a Hershey, and I remember we went on a Hershey chocolate factory tour where they had the cows and the whatever. Anyway, she had a chocolate necklace, Hershey Kiss, silver Hershey Kiss necklace, and she would use it and say yes, no, I don't know. She would ask the ether, the universe. She asked the necklace questions, and the necklace would be like yes, or no. She wouldn't even ask a question. She would just be like say yes and think of it, and the necklace would go yes, and you say no, think of it, and it would go no. And she was playing with that all the time, and she would have me play with it, and of course I could say yes, and she said don't say no, just think it, and I would think it would go yes, no, and go in a circle, and I thought it was cool, but I wasn't, it was cute, it was cool. I played for maybe twice. It's not really a toy, it's just a necklace that's listening to you. And I'm like, okay, that's cool, that's fun. Oh wow, I could play 3 times. Now I'm back to my toys. But she loved that. I mean, I would come home from school and she's like playing with that necklace. So I have no idea what spirits infested the house, but she hated church. My daddy would go to church every now and then for a festival, and my mom would come along simply because. And my dad will listen to church on Sundays. And my mom would even complain about, oh, you're listening to church and blah, 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 blah. And then Granny would take me to church, but that's about it. So she never really went to church. And then I know as a kid, when I was living before we moved to Maryland, I used to have all these crazy dreams, or not even dreams to me. They like I would have the moon, the man in the moon, and the giant hand will always like they would come through my window at night when everyone was sleeping because I had my own room. Why? I don't know, because I didn't want my room. I was terrified. But I would go because I had to have a night light on. I have nyctophobia, which is a fear of darkness as of now, because I don't know, I've always been afraid of a lot of stuff. But the hand will come in my room at night and I'll be sleeping. I'll wake up and I see a hand coming through my window, a giant hand. Of course, it's terrifying. Oh, I would see the man in the moon come through, which was terrifying. And I'm sure that's just my overactive imagination from looking at like nursery rhymes. But yeah, Of course, I run out the bed and run around, but I'm sure there was other things that came in my room because children, you know, people that are people that are just entering the world, like infants and toddlers and children, people that are about to leave the world that's passing away, and hippies and psychics and people who are like prophet, whatever, they can see into the spirit realm like animals. So a child can see into the spirit realm. And so I'm sure I was seeing a bunch of stuff. And I remember when we first moved to Maryland, and I had my own room again. I was like, no, it was a 3-bedroom house. And I said, I want the room next to you guys because they had the bathroom. I said, and they had a bigger room. And I think I was 7. And I'm like, no, I want the small room next to you because I don't, the big room was in front of the stairway. Why would I want that big scary room all by myself? I mean, I don't know. It was bigger. It was further away. It was by the stairs. Why would I want to sleep by the stairs? That's scary as hell. So now I want to sleep next to them in their room. And I remember, I'm assuming it was like 7 or 8. I was young and I was sleeping and I don't know if I'm sleeping again. A giant frog came through my window. I'm dreaming, and it could be just hallucinations, could be a but I mean, but I literally was somehow I was sitting up looking at these things. Like I would be sleep dreaming and something would wake me up. And when I would sit up, here comes a hand, or here comes the moon, or here comes the man in the moon, or here comes a frog coming through my window. And I'm like, what? And of course I would scream and run to my parents' house. And then one time out again, I'm sleeping, I wake up and I don't know, a white lady. I don't know. It looked like a white, maybe middle-aged white lady wearing something. I don't know what it wasn't like no old, and it was like maybe she was wearing a robe. It wasn't like some type of time period dress. It wasn't like the 1800s or the 1500s or crowd. It wasn't like whatever she was wearing. I didn't pay no attention to clothes. I just noticed it was a white lady standing in my room, and she's like, "Don't be afraid. I'm here to watch over you." And I'm like, how the hell did she? Who are you? Or how did she get in my room? And I didn't say this. I'm just looking at her like, oh, here comes something else in my room. And she's like, don't be afraid. I'm just watching over you. I think that's what she said. I know she said, don't be afraid. But I was like, I'm out. And I ran again to my parents' room. But this time, of course, daddy, because every time somehow I run into the room and jumped in the bed. But this time, my mom was like, oh, normally they're just like, it's a bad dream. But this time I was like, oh, who is it? And what did she look like? She was white. Are you sure she was white? Maybe she was just light skinned. Maybe it was your grandmom. Maybe this and that. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know who it. All I know is she said, don't be afraid. And there was a white lady in my room. And that's probably why they noticed it. Because I'm like, oh, is a lady in your room? Someone broke in the house, trespassing? And of course, there was no one there. And I don't know who she was. I don't know. It was kind of weird. But by the time I got later on, I guess like maybe 4th or 5th grade or 6th grade. No, yeah, it was probably 5th grade or so. It was when I was still in elementary school going to Girl Scouts. I guess because we had Girl Scouts at a Catholic church, and I met some other people from my elementary school, and you know, and we were all in the Girl Scouts together. It was all types of kids at the Girl Scouts from all over the schools. And one of the girls in the elementary school at my school was going to this church called Junior Church. I think it was called, I don't know where it was at. It was just called Junior Church somewhere near around my house. And the guy would pick us up in the school bus, and so of course I would, because I would spend the night at her house, because they was, I've always had people come spend the night, my cousins and friends, and then I would spend the night at their house. And whenever I spent the night at their house, we would go to junior church. And it was always so much fun because we'd be on the bus and the bus would go over speed, but we would fly out the seat. So I always liked to get on the bus. And we would have all these fun songs on the bus. And at the church, we would sing all these fun songs and like dun 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 dun, junior church, Woodlawn. Okay, yeah, Woodlawn Junior Church. Go figure. I don't even know where it was at, but I guess Woodlawn Junior Church. And it was in a school, I think, and it was lots of fun, and it was lots of games, and it was like children's church, and I enjoyed it. I don't know where adult church was, I don't know, but the children's church was fun. So I would go to there all the time, and then of course, whenever I spent the night, we would go to children's church, and then when we weren't spending the night, I'm like, I want to go to children's church again. So my friend would come, they would come pick us. They started picking me up after they picked my friends up. We would go to children's church, and at the time, my mom and dad didn't say nothing. I mean, because I'm a kid and I'm going, these are the same people I'm going to Girl Scouts with, and this black girl down the street, friend of mine. And so I guess her and her sisters were going. So obviously my mom probably got the okay from her parents. So of course they gave me the okay to go to junior church. But then when I got to junior high school, I don't know how I found out about Riverdale Baptist Church, which is in, Montgomery, like PG County, Maryland. Like it wasn't Upper Marlboro, Maryland. It was a really nice church. And so somehow, I guess when I left Woodline Junior Church, they said, well, you could check out check out Riverdale Baptist. And so I wanted to go there. And my mom had no problem me going to junior church, which was in Maryland, like near our house, I guess. I'm assuming somewhere near our house, not too far away, or maybe in the urban. But Riverdale Baptist was out in the suburbs. And my mom was mad because she said they didn't, because when we first moved, when DC, and I mean, side note, when DC, I grew up near Catholic University, not far, like my mom used to volunteer at Catholic University, work with children with this developmental disabilities and disabled, like physical disabilities and developable. So she would do arts and crafts. Like she would do like really good arts and crafts. I mean, she got stuff corporated. Like she was really good at art. Like we would make doll houses, and she would take a coat hanger and make a puppy dog. She would take a cardboard refrigerator box and make it a dollhouse that I liked so much that it turned into a sled. So she would make all types of crazy arts and crafts just from like school, like cereal boxes and coat hangers. So she did arts and crafts at the Catholic University, whatever. So we were, but that was and I remember my great uncle, my mom's side, I have like a block party every year, and I know there was white people and nuns and Black people, and I'm sure there was other races of people, I'm sure, but I mean, it was still like diverse. And of course, at that age, I could, at 3 and 4, what do you know? I don't know much about, I didn't pay no attention about race at the time, but it was, they had white nuns, they had Black people, they had different people there. And then when we moved from there to Maryland, it was, I guess, mostly white. They had Black people. Like we lived next door to Blacks, and we lived across the street from some Blacks. But then everywhere else were white, and I was fine with it. But I guess, of course, when Blacks moved in, the whites moved out, and then Latinos moved in from like Guatemala and El Salvador, and then the Blacks moved. The Black people did the same thing. It was white flights when the Blacks moved in, and it was Black flight when the El Salvadorian and Central Americans moved in. So go figure, Blacks weren't that much more heightier. When they got the money, they fled, just like the white people did. So yeah, unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever. But I guess by the time I got to junior high school, a lot of the whites moved out. And I guess Riverdale Baptist used to be in my neighborhood of Riverdale, which is where I was growing up. But then they moved out to Upper Marlboro, Maryland, like maybe 30 minutes away, in a very posh, well, not posh, but it's like a rural area, more whites. And my mom was angry that, oh, you guys moved up, white flight, you left, and you're racist because you didn't stay here. Now I just wanted to go to church because the church seemed fun, and Woodline Junior Church was lots of fun. And my daddy said nothing. He was like, he was I was honored to have a wonderful dad who was there from birth to when he passed away unexpected, which is when I got mad at God. But he was always around. He was a perfect, I mean, I was like a daddy's girl. I was very much a daddy's girl. And my mom was always fussing and wilding out, and she had like my aunt thinks it's bipolar. I don't think it's bipolar, but she definitely had OCD. She definitely had OCD to certain things, like she wanted the couch specific. I mean, she had like a lot of quirks and stuff, which everyone does. But she had some OCD. She was always kind of angry with certain things and obsessed with certain things. So yeah, I guess OCD. And she wasn't really right. I mean, a lot of times, because I guess by the time, the fact, I guess I remember all my life. I mean, I don't know, all my life I can remember my dad's like, when my mom started wilding out, arguing and fussing, of course I would, which is probably why I'm passive aggressive. I don't argue back because my mother, it's pointless. You can't argue against your mom. My daddy didn't even argue against her. She would argue and start wilding out. And my dad's like, I'm calling St. Elizabeth, which is a crazy house. It's like where all the super crazy people are. But he would pick up the phone, I'm calling St. Elizabeth. I'm about to call St. Elizabeth. And I remember that, I mean, he would do that all the time, and that didn't shut her up. She would just keep wilding out. But he was always like, I'm about to call St. Elizabeth. And of course, my mom started wilding out. He would go upstairs, and then she would wild out at me. So I would run upstairs because I don't want to be bothered. So I would kind of run upstairs to daddy just to get away from my mom. And my dad would just sit around and watch TV or listen to the radio and don't say nothing. And I was perfectly fine with that. My mom, she would like wild out. So my daddy, while she was wilding out and complaining about Riverdale Baptists being racist, conservative, bigots, my daddy just didn't say nothing because he knew arguing was pointless. And I was probably crying or something because I'm like, I want to go to the church. What does it matter? And the white bus driver, was like, oh no, we just got there because it's bigger and we pick up kids all the time. We bus them and blah, 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 blah. So I don't know, somehow at no willing of her, but probably between my dad and a white guy, and maybe because my friend from Girl Scouts didn't even go there. So I don't know how I found out about Riverdale Baptist, but somehow, yeah, it was summer camp. That's probably what it was. It was summer camp. It was summer, what do you call it? Summer camp or summer Christian school, whatever it is, like in the summertime where they have like 1 or 2 weeks of summertime fun for kids. I think it's called summer Christian summer camp, daycare, whatever. Whatever it was, you would go to there every day and have all types of fun activities. And that's how I got introduced to the church. I have no idea. I guess that's how summertime fun, week of summertime camp at the church, whatever you call it, for kids, whatever you call it. Well, and so that's how somehow I was allowed to go. Unwilling, something to my, what's the word I want to think of? Unfortunately for my mom, she didn't want to do it. She didn't want me to have me to go. I'm trying to think, but I was able to go. Somebody must have said let her go. I don't know, but anyway, maybe God just told her shut up, and so I went. And I enjoyed it so much, and I started going all the time. And she was always, that's when she started bitching and complaining. Going to the elementary school thing was fine, but going to the junior high school, she was just always complaining. They're racist, they're bigot, they're brainwashing you. And I'm like, I just ignored her because um they didn't really talk. The only thing they ever did was talk about, one time they had a sign some petition about don't have abortions and gave it to the, and I thought that was kind of shady because they wrote all these letters, and they gave us all papers in junior high school. They all gave us papers and told us the horrors of abortion. And they told us to write a letter to some politician and sign your name and say how old you are. And I just followed orders, but I didn't agree with it. I didn't appreciate that at all. And this had nothing, I didn't like that. And I know at junior high school, I'm like, what the heck? This isn't, first off, that's not church. That's not Bible. This is politics and lobbying. And I knew it was wrong. And even though I was a kid, I knew that was unacceptable and I did not like it. And then secondly, I was like, well, if a woman wants to have an abortion, that's on her. I have nothing to do with that, and still to that's between her and, so I did not like that. And I didn't appreciate that. Yeah, I believe it's still murder because it's murder, but I didn't like the fact that she had our write that during, what is that, Sunday school thing. But outside of that, it was just normal. We, watch movies, we sing songs, we learn Bible stories, had puppet shows about, but it was very fun. And then they had a summer camp where we went from Maryland to Maine, Bangor, Maine, which was awesome. I still love that place. I think it's called Living Waters. And it was so amazing. And I love that living. I would love to go visit again to Maine. And we took the school bus up there. It was an awesome trip. It was an awesome experience altogether. And in a very diverse church, very diverse. So, we had blacks, they had whites, they had Latinos, they had Asians, all types of people, Americans, foreigners. So I loved the church, and the music was awesome. That's how I got introduced to a whole lot of good songs, and I met new friends. And only 3 people went to my elementary school. And it's funny because my elementary school was fine in DC, and when I moved to Maryland, it was okay until I got to 4th grade, and they started busing kids from some other it was just horrible after 4th grade. I started bus kids would start picking on me and bullying me, and I just hated it after that. But it was still diverse school. It was still a very diverse school, but they had a bunch of hood rats. And I think I learned in school they had a black kid, a white kid, and a next El Salvadoran kid. All 3, black, white, and Latino. All 3 of them were assholes. They were all bullying me. So it doesn't matter. I said a black kid bully, the white kid bully, the Latino bully. All 3 of them are jerks. Nothing, so I'm in elementary school and I learned that. I'm like, race is being an idiot didn't have any race. And then my friends, by the time I got to junior high school, I have all of my friends were from the Caribbean, or one guy claimed he was a black guy claiming he's from England, but I think he was just, my mom said he just made pretend he spoke real proper, but that's not an English accent. But of course I had a lot of friends, but they were all very diverse, Vietnamese, African, where was that girl from? All over, Trinidad, wherever. So, I don't know. I just have very diverse friends, Americans, and so I've never was all that hooked up on the race thing. So my mom probably even more upset that she's trying to brainwash me is not working. I guess whether it's a stupid play with this stupid Hershey Park necklace keychain, have it say yes, no in between. No, it's not fun. Play with the stupid, Karate Kid, ding dong, whatever you call it, drum. No, I'm not interested. White people are evil. Okay, yeah, that's nice. I mean, so I think she was kind of also mad that I took everything she said as a grain of salt because she was so hysterical, so over the top, so irrational that even if she was telling the truth, you learned that in hindsight. It's like, oh, I guess my mom did make a point because you're so irrational, you're so over the top. You listen to everything is a grain of. I take everything she said with a grain of salt because I'm like, you're over the top, you're irrational, you're hysterical, you're illogical. So I take what you said with a grain of salt, and I'm in like elementary school doing this. I mean, whatever she tells me, I take with a grain of salt. She would exaggerate everything, over the top, everything. So she wasn't even. I'm in elementary school and realized she's not believable. And I've come back hindsight. I said, oh, she did have a lot of points. She was on point with all that, but because she was so irrational and ridiculous, I didn't listen to it because you're too ridiculous. My daddy was more calm and normal talking, but he didn't really try to brainwash me. He was, and in fact, my dad was like the complete opposite. I think I took a lot of my dad's. For example, my dad listened to all types of music. Like he would listen to bluegrass and honky tonk on the radio, and maybe because he's from Virginia. But I mean, I was never really into any music he listened. Now I'm still not into like the type of jazz he listened. Like he listened to Coltrane and classic jazz, but he would listen to honky tonk and bluegrass. He would he would listen to all types of music from jazz to bluegrass and to gospel. And I love all types of music too. And I do like some older jazz and I like modern jazz and I love some of the music I make is like jazzy. But and I love honky tonk bluegrass and stuff. And my dad would like look at all types of sports, I mean, he was like a well-rounded Renaissance man. And in fact, he was the one that got me the linguistics bug because he didn't really speak languages. In fact, he has some paintings. He made some paintings, took a night class and he made some paintings. And after he passed, I'm like, here's his paintings. He never hung up. I don't know why he never hung them on the wall, but I have him hanging on my wall right here from 1995 or 98 or whenever he took them. But with that said, you know, he would like he was really into word etymology and the origins. Like he would open up a dictionary and be like, "Oh, umbrella. That's a three-syllable word," and I think that's like Greek origin or Latin. I mean, I don't know what the umbrella etymology is, but he would start talking like 30 minutes about the origins of umbrella or word, and my mom would run away, and I'm thinking, oh, so she's slick. She left me here. I don't want to hear this. Who cares? But I would just sit down and listen just because I'm trying to be cordial, obedient, and nice. But I can give zero cares about it. Or he was really into history. Like he would talk about great African kings of like the ancient past or um all type of obscure knowledge of languages and history. And it was very fascinating. In fact, after he passed, I started the Alvin T. Smith Foundation on history because he was really into it. And he had like so much collections and stuff. But yeah, I don't know where everything seems to have gotten lost. But and he would tell everyone that like I would bring friends over. And funny because I have all types of weird friends. In fact, all of my friends say all your friends are weird except me. And I think all my friends were like on the outskirts of like the outcasts, in fact, the group, the Circle's Edge, initially I called it the Outcast Society because for people who didn't fit in to the inner crowd and in circle, you're not in the in crowd, you're not in circle, you're an outcast, which was kind of a negative connotation. But on top of that, everyone that came was thinking it was an Outcast fan club, and they were trying to hear about Outcast rapper. And I was like, you don't have no Outcast CD, you're not listed to Outcast. I'm like, oh no, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she has the same name, wrong subject. So then I called it Incast Society, which made no sense at all. So that's why I call it the Circle's Edge, because you're on the edge of the circle. You're not in the in crowd, but forget about the in crowd. Come on out to the Circle's Edge. So yeah, most of my friends were kind of like fringed out like that. But I don't know, my what was I saying, junior high school. But yeah, she was kind of like always complaining about me going to that church, even though I enjoyed it. And then when I came back, I think before I got to high school, I ended up having a job at a summer camp, which was quite torturous. And it actually gave me nightmares, but it was a Christian camp. But I won't call it a cult, but they were it was way out in the middle of nowhere, and you needed a car to get there, and you would stay there the whole time, and you wouldn't go home until the end of the summer. And the man was like 15 years younger than a woman, and they had it adopted. I mean, I don't know. They were very, I mean, they were not just conservative, they were extremists. And they were kind of ignorant. Like, for example, they had an African guy working there or living there doing something now I'm thinking he's probably East, like from like Kenya, Liberia, one of them not Liberia, Kenya or Tanzania, some Southern East African country, I'm guessing, because he was, and I forgot his name, but I was like, where country is he from? They said Africa. I'm like, where in Africa? Africa. And they swore up and down that Africa is a country. And I thought, like, what are you talking about? And they didn't even know Africa was not a country. I'm like, how is this possible? I mean, you're over 10 years old, you still think. And I used to love like Richard Scarry's best word book ever about them going to the city, going to the country, going, brushing their teeth, going to the house. And I think there was something to do with traveling outside of that. And I literally studied the continents and the land, oceans and the mountain ranges of Asia and Africa. So the rivers, like, different rivers. And I just, geography was very fascinating, like rivers, mountain ranges, countries. And I used to know all the countries and the capitals of Africa, Western Europe, much of Asia, and South America. And I think in the Spanish class, I had to learn from South America, all the Spanish speaking countries and their capitals. And I think that kind of got me learning all the other capitals and countries. So I was just shocked that someone over 3 years old or 5 years old didn't know that. But somehow it was just, their whole experience was very brutal. And their concept was, we're going to take poor inner city kids and bring them out here to the country to go camping. And then they run in the sun and then, I don't know, I guess do something. And then they hired a bunch of prison people that on parole from prison to cook and clean and cut the grass, which is, they were fine. I had nothing against them. Then they had a few other teenagers like us that came from the churches, but they were very mean. The woman and the man, they would get on you for like the slightest thing. They would throw pies in your face. Like if you did something they didn't like, they would take a pie and slam it in your face. Like if they would humiliate you. Like if you didn't eat all your food, they would make you sit there and eat it till the next day. And they didn't care if you was a counselor or a student. They would not let you throw it out. Like they had powdered eggs every day. And if you didn't like it, you go sit there and eat it. And you can't get up the table till you're done. And if you didn't finish that meal, then they'll bring it back for lunch or dinner. And I think one kid ended up puking in his plate because he couldn't eat it. And then they would throw the kids, if they're really bad, they would take them head first and dump them in the trash can. Because of punishment. Okay, he's bad in front of everyone at lunch. They would pick the kid up and throw him head first in the trash can. Okay. Or they would throw, if they didn't like you, they would throw a pie in your face. And one time they threw a pie in my face and everyone was cheering. It was very humiliating. Very humiliating. And I don't know how throwing a kid in a trash can or throwing a pie in someone's face is fun or disciplining. I mean, I could see eating all your food, but throwing him in a trash can or throwing a pie in your face doesn't teach you anything except this is mean and cruel and bullying and obnoxious. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And when I left, I had like heat rash all over my back. I guess I gained weight. I was black as tar. I was probably gained 10, 15 pounds from stress, cortisol, and eating 3 times a day. And I had heat rash all in the back of my neck because it was hellish hot in the sun. And then I had nightmares about the place. So that was nice. Yeah, it was called Camp Bennett. And then in high school I started going to a youth group in my church. And this whole time I knew Jesus. And in fact, I used to pray to Jesus every day because I remember they had this thing called Dial-A-Teen, where if you were bored and lonely, you could call this number and they'll talk to you about God. So I used to call and talk to them all the time because I was bored and lonely. And, it was just someone to talk to because I didn't, I was lonely and bored. I didn't have that many friends. And they told me about God, and I got, and I asked them to become a Christian, and I started reading the Bible, and maybe that's how I learned about Riverdale Baptist, because junior church is from the Girl and Girl Scouts. Riverdale Baptist probably from the Dalatine at the Central Union, in the, I think they were at the homeless shelters. Anyway, a Central Union Mission or whatever. They worked there and volunteered there. And I used to pray into God every night, and I would pray everything from help me, please save me, help me get saved, because I never felt anything or felt anything amazing. And I make sure I grow taller and lose weight. I never grew taller or low. So yeah, so that, yeah, none of the got too many answers. The only one I guess he even answered of all the billions of prayers was when my daddy had a heart attack when I was 10 years old, and I remember praying to God for him, and I wasn't the only one, so who knows if he answered my prayer. But my daddy lived, thank God. He was in a hospital in intensive care, but he lived. So that was good. But with that said, by the time I got in high school, and my throat's hurting now from talking so much. By the time I got to high school, I was going to this Black youth group, which was really good at singing. We had a really great choir, so I was going there, and it was somewhere to go, and and because a couple of guys were cute and I liked them, but I didn't get any dates or nothing, so I was still kind of lonely. It was just fun to do, and we went on a road trip a couple of times, so it was something to do, and fellowship. But it was more like somewhere to go and something to do versus relationships with God. It was more like just something to do, somewhere to go. And it was during that time that my cousin, when she was she graduated high school, and and I guess she was in college, and she went to a local college, and she met this Sudanese guy who wanted to marry her, and she became a Muslim because he was Muslim. And I guess to marry him, she became, and I'm like, what? And I remember all of my family was like distraught, because he was like 12, he was like 32, and she was 19. So they were like, this is the most horrible day. And they were like crying and stuff at the wedding. I was the only one that was proud of her and glad that congratulations. But then I wondered, they just thought it was horrible. And the marriage didn't last. It lasted like 3 months or something. So yeah, but yeah, she ran away. But she stayed a Muslim. She had a second husband and gave birth to her daughter from there. With that said, she that's what triggered me. Like, well, why did you become a Muslim? And she said, well, why are you a Christian? She said, we're born into Christianity, we're raised Christian, that's all we know is Christianity. So how do you know it's right? And I'm like, that's such a good point. So by the time I graduated, I know, in fact, before I graduated, I started asking my youth leader why, I was telling about my cousin becoming a Muslim, and why is it, why are you Christians? Why are we Christians? What are the other options? And he said, you know what, these are good questions, and you have to seek those answers yourself. So that's what I did. I started checking out everything. I checked out the Hare Krishnas, because I met a guy who was Hare Krishna. I checked out the I checked out Islam. I went to the college and I went to the Islamic Live Community College Islamic student group. And the first videos they gave me were all the reasons to never be a Christian, all the reasons the Christians are horrible. I was quite insulted. I'm like, what the hell? Hello? I didn't ask you all the reason why you don't like Christian. I said, why are you a Muslim? So then they gave me the Muslim videos, and they were all about like Christian. Basically, they took the Bible and they kind of edited to make it sound Muslim. They changed the names and changed the colors of their outfit. So I said, these are all Christian stories. Yeah, because it's based on, Christianity, blah, 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 because it's an Abrahamic religion. I checked out Judaism, and the exact same thing. I went to the Jewish Community Center library, and they gave me all the reasons why all the reasons why a Jew should never in their entire life become a Christian. Christians are evil. Hitler was a Christian. Christians don't ever become a Christian. And again, I said, well, why are you giving me this? I asked you about Judaism, and they gradually gave me they didn't want to give me much about Judaism. They just gave me all the reasons you shouldn't become a Christian, but they gave me so they didn't give me too much about Judaism, which I thought was odd. I checked out Wiccan and New Age. I checked out Wiccan. I went to this voodoo priestess for a boyfriend, did some rituals and no results. I went to this Santeria. I don't even know what, I guess it was like one of them Santeria, go botanical shop, and I got all these rose water and all these elements and items, and did this weird bath and this and that, and did all these activities with zero result, nil. I was like, this is useless. I spent the money, spent the time, got no results. Probably opened every portal, a whole bunch more portals, but no results. So that was useless. And then I checked out what was, oh yeah, no, what do you call those people? Jehovah's Witnesses were always coming over because that's what they do. So I talked to them like my last year of school. I used to skip school, and I told the lady, well, if you give me a ride, because she's like, what are you doing here? Why are you knocking on my door if you want? What do you mean? You knocked on my door? But I guess she realized I was a kid. And she's like, why are you home? Where are your parents? I'm like, they're at work. But why are you here? If you look, and then she's like, I said, you could come in. And she was like, well, you need to go to school. I said, well, if you give me a ride to school, I'll listen to your spiel about you. So we would have like Bible lessons, and she'll give me a ride to school. Because I always, by the time I got to like my sophomore year, I started skipping school a lot. So I mastered the art of skipping school and still passing on time and never staying back, failing. But so yeah, she gave me a ride to school. So I checked out the Jehovah's Witnesses. Yeah, I think I told you I met a guy who was a Hare Krishna. I checked him out. Buddhism, I think. I met, you always meet New Age people. So I met some New Agers, and I went to their interfaith New Age concert festival church thing. And I was really into the New Age because that of all the religion, and then what was the other one? Like I said, I met Hare Krishna, who was kind of interesting. And then a little bit of, because they use the Bhagavad Gita, which is like, oh, and then the Baha'i faith. I checked some people, the Baha'i faith. I met some people from that Baha'i faith. They gave me, Baha'i faith tutorials, whatever you call it. When I went to Japan for a year on an exchange program, the Japanese exchange program, which was really cool and interesting as well. And while there, I met the Mormons because they were there teaching, quote unquote, teaching English to the Japanese. But of course, their main goal was to convert them, but they would teach them English first. And so I met them, and I'm like, well, oh, you speak fluent Japanese. Can you help me? Because I was, unlike all the big cities like Tokyo and Hiroshima, Osaka, I was in a small fishing village that had like 10 foreigners, and no one spoke English except the English teacher. So it was like sink or swim. You can figure it out, whether it's Japanese kanji and writing, or in reading Japanese or speaking it. And so they taught me Japanese as an American, which is very uneasy to understand. They were like, oh, Japanese grammar is like English grammar flipped over like a pancake. And they taught me like just substitute these words. So they taught me a lot of Japanese, and they started teaching me about, oh, do you mind if we teach you about the a relation? I'm like, well, yeah, sure. You've been teaching me about Japanese for about a month. And so I checked, and I even got baptized into the Mormon faith. So yeah, I got baptized into them, and they're really nice, and they still contact me, and they still want me to join church. So that's, and then there was this one church, and when I was at college, they claimed it was a cult called a Church of Christ, and there's a billion and one churches called Church of Christ. So, but they claimed this one was a cult, and they gave you 10 lessons, and you kind of, and then once you got to the 10th lesson or 12th lesson, you could get baptized and join them. But you cannot, they would give you lesson 2, and if you ask the wrong question, they'll repeat lesson 2. And if you ask it again, they'll repeat lesson 2, and they will not progress to rest. They will not send you to lesson 3 until you finish lesson 2. And they will love bomb you, and they were really, really nice. And I used to squat at the girls' house. Like I would go stay at their house because they were near the campus and off campus though. I could stay at their apartment and walk to school, and I would bring toilet paper and food and stuff from my parents' house and stay there, and we would go hang out afterwards. And they were really, really nice. But the following year, I noticed that their supervisor, or whoever you want to call it, like they were nice, but their overseers or whoever you call it, like there's this chick that she came to their house, and for as I know, she was a college student also, but I guess she was overseeing them. I don't know what you call it, or what do you call it when you get saved and you have someone ministering to you, mentoring you, whatever you call it, fellow, whatever. She was like their mentor, whatever you call it, over them. And she yelled, she kind of argued at them. I'm sitting right there. And she's like, you can't be friends unequally yoked. And I've been hanging out with them for a year now. And she met me. And I guess because I didn't progress and I didn't successfully get baptized, and I kept asking questions, which they don't want you to, if you ask too many questions, you got to repeat the lessons. And so they never got baptized. I never finished those classes to get baptized and to join the church. So she reprimanded them and rebuked them for dealing with me and unequally yoked, and you shouldn't be hanging out with her. What is wrong with you? And another time, she rebuked another girl in my dorm because it was snowing and she didn't have a ride. So she didn't want to walk 3 miles from campus at night to another college at Catholic University. She didn't want to walk from Howard University to Catholic University, which is about 4 or 5 miles at night in the snow to attend this Bible study. And no one would give her a ride, I guess, but she didn't go. And so they rebuked her, yelled at her. And I thought that was kind of weird. And then if you had like if you had a girlfriend or boyfriend, they would separate you guys because you shouldn't be okay, fine. You separate the boyfriend and girlfriend. Then they were arranged, and then they like, if you had a boyfriend or girlfriend, they would separate you guys. Then they would, instead of having you minister and become a Christian and join the church, and then then have like a counselor, help y'all have a wholesome relationship and get married, they would set them up different, like they would set the guy up for another girl, they would set a girl up for another guy. They forbidden them to keep dating each other. But if you want to get married, here's Joe Blow over here for you to marry, or here's Jane Doe. And so they would set them up different relationships. So they couldn't really marry the guy they were dating. They had to look somewhere else, I guess. I don't know. And so she was mad that the guy moved on and found a new girlfriend who was more holy and agreeable than her. And then they started knocking on her door, like telemarketing her and asking her why I think she was the one that they rebuked and yelled for not walking 5 miles at night in the snow to Bible study. And then she literally had to leave school because they kept hunting her down and telemarketing her. And then somehow I saw on the news later, like a year or so later, that it was a cult, which I don't know how much of a cult it was. And I went on to another church. There's a whole lot of there's a whole lot of French Christian churches. Like there was one church called The Way in Maryland, and they were really weird. They were nice. No, they were weird. They I shouldn't even say their name, but they believe you could curse and cuss and use foul language because why not? Paul did. Okay, that's fine. They believe that you could train yourself to to speak tongues. And then they would say you just start babbling, blah, 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 a bunch of stuff. And at some point your force will take over you and you will start babbling in tongues. And they said practice every day. And I'm like, okay. And I don't know, they were different. They were a little aggressive. They weren't like telemarketers, but they were a bit aggressive. I don't know. And then I even did the L. Ron Hubbard Scientology classes. I did a couple of those, the first Dianetics, and I kept saying, well, what's the result? What's the end result? And they just want you to keep paying. So I'm so glad Leanna Remedy came with her video, and because I'm like, they were sending me stuff all the time. They would never tell me what the result is. And I'm like, I don't have the money to keep spending for this. So I stopped going altogether. But they surely didn't stop sending me money, chance to take their classes. And then he finally said, well, the result is you can manipulate time and matter, and you can make you can make things happen, and you can make people do what you want them to do. And I'm like, oh, okay. That's like you go to Starbucks and say, I want a free coffee. And then somebody would give you a free coffee. I'm like, oh, that's very useful. But then, so they had all these things. And then the final thing and I'm trying to think of Buddhism. Yeah, I checked out Buddhism by somebody. I don't know, obviously a Buddhist, wherever I found. And they were like, basically Buddhism is like, nothing is real. Like once you die, you cease to exist. And I'm like, well, energy can't be created nor destroyed. Yeah, that's all right. Once you die, you cease to exist. Have a nice day. And so I'm like, why would you? They didn't even. Well, maybe he was lying because I thought the goal was to hit nirvana, and I didn't know nirvana meant cease to exist. And I know you keep recycling, we keep, what do you call that thing? Reincarnating every 6 seconds, but I didn't know like once you got it, you hit nirvana and then you cease to exist. That makes no sense. I think they were lying, but that doesn't make sense. But anyway, that was what he told me what Buddhism was, and it seemed like the most legit ones of all the ones I kept studying. The ones that made the most sense was Christian, and then I finally checked. That's what Christianity seemed like it's the only Christianity and the New Age, because the New Age was logical and science based, like metaphysics, and the law of attraction, the power of the spoken word, and that's based in Bible. So I'll always do that. And Christianity, because everyone else is either biting off of Christianity, a bastardization of Christianity, or some other far-fetched religion that makes no sense. And then they all hate they don't have an anti-Buddha, they don't have an anti-Muhammad, they don't have an anti-Abraham, Isaac, or Jacob, they don't have an anti Bhagavad Gita, they don't have an anti anything, they only have an anti-Christ. And I remember I was somewhere and they were saying like, and I started when I came back from Japan, I visited a Japanese friend in San Francisco, and we went to the house, whatever you call the Winchester House. And of course, why not? That's another option that get demons attached to you. But anyway, and again, I skipped a whole lot of stuff. While I was in Japan, with the Mormons and everything else, learning Japanese, my and again, like all the times I'm in Maryland, I prayed to God. I was going to church on and off. Then, when I got to college, I checked out I was going to clubs. I was having fun. I was freedom. I hit the ground, freedom, freedom, freedom. And, last thing I thought about was church. However, I did start going to church at the Church of Christ. I went to their church because why not? And they were all nice. We would have food after church. They were really nice. And, I wasn't allergic to church. I would go and I would participate. But then, I would go to the clubs and dance and, have fun and live life. That was the last thing and then and I was really naive and ignorant about a lot more spiritual stuff. And then but I did want a relationship, want a man. I wasn't exactly thinking about marriage in my 20s, but I still wanted a man. And I definitely wasn't thinking about a baby, because whatever. But I always prayed that whenever I, before about it, oh yeah, and I had a Disney intern too, which is awesome, but that has something to do with the spirituality thing. That was just more adventures and opportunities. But I have like a whole chapter in my book called the bad, the worst, and the worstest, about all the guys I met and all the silliness. And to be honest, when I think about it, I was very ditzy. I was very naive. I'm sure a part of it was my autism and being oblivious and stupid as a day is long. But I've always was ignorantly naive. I mean, and plus I was I could never keep a job and I could never keep a relationship. And I know I would meet guys all the time and go in their car or go in their house and let them come in my house, and they would try to molest, or they would molest me, and I would always sneak. I remember in junior high school, high school, I got molested behind the guy. I was always getting molested, but I always, like, guys were filling me up and humping me and everything, but I would sneak off and run away, and I never got raped. I never even got beat up. And I'm sure that was angels checking out on me. And I know one time in high school when I was skipping school, this is still in high school, I was because why not? And then I would sneak out at night, me and my juvenile delinquent fet friend and stuff, and drive and joyride my mom's. After I got my license, we would hang out at night. But I know when I first went to driver's ed and I first got my license, I was so happy. And of course, they teach you how to drive on a highway with the driving coach. But then, I never drove on a highway by myself. And I took my mom's car because I shouldn't have been, whatever. I was sneaking out and partying. Not all we would do is sneak out, drive around, and pick up a bunch of other juvenile delinquents who drive around and hang out all night and drop them off, and I would park and go to bed and skip school the next day. That's why I hated school. And I rather sleep in, watch TV, walk to school by fourth period, go to fifth period and sixth period and come home. And then the next day I'll go to school for second or third period at lunch, go to the mall, go to the movies, and not go back to school. And then the last day of the week, I would go to first and second period and take the quiz and pass all my tests. I would go to school one whole day a week. Like maybe on a Monday, I would go to school the whole day, get all my work. And at the Friday, I would go to school. So Monday and Friday, I probably go to school, take my test, turn in my homework, pass all my classes, and skip school Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, skip classes or skip the whole day or skip half a day. And they started having a computer call my house. Hello, this is a message to Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Oh, yes, I'm Mrs. Smith. How can I? This is a computer. Your daughter skipped school. Thank you. Bye-bye. And if I failed, I just wrote it. I probably did fail a few classes, and I would turn an F into a B or turn an E into a B, and my parents were none the wiser because I intercepted the mail. The mail would come, they're at work. I would collect it. I would collect the mail and burn it or whatever. I wouldn't give it to them. I'm not stupid. And every now and then my neighbor would try to snitch on me. So I have to bribe him or something just so because he was snitch, your daughter's skipping school. So I'd be mad. So I have to bribe him just to shut him up, whatever. And so what was I gonna say? I went to Japan. But anyway, I went to Disney and so forth. And Oh yeah, I was taking the car and joyriding. But anyway, this one time I took the car after I got my license, and I usually we joyride, we just drive around the neighborhood. We would take local roads and cruise around, not on the highway. But this time, like a stupid idiot, I got on the highway. I don't know why. Why was I getting on the highway? Why not? Right? I got my license. I passed driver's ed. Let me get on the highway. My mom had a Honda Civic. I'm getting in the highway. I burn, and I see this giant headlights of an 18-wheeler right behind me because obviously I didn't know how to merge because I'm an idiot. I got on the highway without properly merging, and I literally got my little Honda, my mom's Honda Civic, right in front of an 18-wheeler who blew the horn at me, flashed his lights, and I was literally shocked and stunned. I literally just sat there, shocked. My hands, I froze in terror and fear because you see these giant headlights coming in the mirror, you hear the horn. I froze. I mean, because that's all I could do is freeze of terror. And I mean, what are you gonna do if you're about to die? And the car jerked off and exited highway. Now I don't know. Maybe it was a white lady to visit me when I was 7 years old. Maybe it was Jesus. I don't know. Whoever it was, I froze staring in the mirror, shocked. The horn is blowing, and the wheel jerked and drove off the highway by itself, like Knight Rider and Kit. And I'm like, oh. And then by the time I got off the highway, I'm so shocked and traumatized. Like, how the hell, what? And shocked. Then I realized, how did I get off the highway? Then I said, let me go home because I'm such an idiot. And I went straight home, mad at myself, and went to bed. But of course, I never told my parents, but I don't even know. I mean, like I said, a force jerked the car off the highway and drove it, and it helped me drive it off the highway because I was frozen. It jerked off the highway on its own and drove me off. So that lets you know something. And that definitely happened. Another time, this past 2018 on my birthday, I went to this stupid Funplex Fun Park in upstate New York to get on a human gyroscope. The last time I got a human gyroscope, I was probably at that park in Bangor, Maine, or somewhere. I was in high school or junior high school. So I wanted to get on a human gyroscope because it kind of simulates zero gravity. I love roller coasters. At the time, I was going to amusement parks and getting on roller coasters for like 45 minutes straight because I just love, movement like that. So I get on a human gyroscope like a dummy. Well, no, it's not even a dummy. Stupid people should have told me this for children. And there's a weight maximum and a height minimum and a height maximum. They didn't say any of this. They couldn't even fax me in. And so I was like, let me get off. And the guy said, oh, I could do it. So he snapped me in. It seemed like I was snapped in. And thank God the motor was broken, so they had to manually. All I know is because the motor was broken, they had to manually because it's like a gyroscope. First one spins, then the second ring, the middle ring spins it another way, then the outer ring spins the third way. So you got three different rings spinning three different directions. And if the motor was working, I don't know how fail safe it was, but they had to manually do it. All I know is I ended up on my back, upside down, my feet hanging up like a pig, and I was like, "What the hell happened?" And they was like, oh, stop the ride, and they unfastened me, and I felt, but thank God that the motor was broken and I had to manually do it. And I still didn't get a penny from them because I fell off your ride, Funplex Fun Park, your negligence, your patheticness, and I didn't get not one penny from a lawsuit. So what's that up with this? That's unacceptable. Anyway, and I have a whole lot of other weird or opposite testimonies from Jesus in the book. But with that said, yeah, I went to Japan and I came back and visit a friend. And again, like I said, I didn't know anything about no spirituality, none of that stuff. I didn't know any of it. So I went to visit them and we went to the Winchester house and they tell you don't take pictures. I don't know anything about attachment. And like I said, I would go to clubs. I was into the new age, like, because it makes sense. I mean, I wouldn't call it, I didn't call it the new age. I call it metaphysics. And it's scientific, yeah, but I mean, whatever. I was always praying into the universe. At that time, that was even before oh, maybe I did. No, I think that was before I even knew about it. Or maybe I did know, but I don't know. But that was probably before that happened. That's before I even knew about the secret and but I knew about metaphysics and stuff. So that was the one I figured out that made the most sense, parallel metaphysics and the law, before I even knew anything about the law of attraction, I knew about metaphysics and I guess you could call it the new age, but it was, different things. But again, while I was in Japan, I guess before I even get to that part, I was in Japan. And like I said, every year, um, I would pray for, when I did pray, I would pray for a marriage and my daddy giving me away and this, and that. I was praying for those things. I didn't pray every day and I didn't go to church every time, but I did, when I did pray, it was one of, like, my daddy give me away and, help me get some money and get a job and help me this, and that, basic prayers that people who were, regular people would pray, not nothing holy, hallelujah, real prayer, but like prayers about help me get a man, help me get some money, help me this, help me that, help me. So that's what I was praying for when I did pray. And I went and I got a job in Japan, and not even a fiance, not even pregnant, not in marriage, but my dad passed away. So I was like, that's it. That's it. Because, you know, God, you're an evil monster. I mean, look at the Old Testament. All you do is slaughter and kill people. Every book, you're like bipolar. Like one minute, oh, I love you, Israel. You're my best friend. Next minute, I hate you. I'm gonna kill you. You're like what's the word? Like a husband, a man that's or a woman, a narcissist woman, or a man that's abusive, and they'll beat you up, and then they'll come back with flowers to how much they love you. So please don't do it again. But then they'll beat you up. I said, that's horrible. And then you didn't give me a marriage. I got this job by the skin of my teeth, and now that I'm here, my boss is a spawn of Satan, and the Scottish guy's a jerk, and they're picking on me in Japan, and they're trying to get me to get fired. And on top of that, my dad is dead. Instead of you giving me a wedding, you gave me a funeral. I'm done. You're useless. What are you offering me? You can't even. You're horrible. And I was done. After that, I was done. I went home for my daddy's funeral, went back to Japan to finish my job. And, and I moved to Baltimore when I came back home and whatever. And, last thing, I could care less about God, because I was disgusted and insulted and wasted my time. And, he did nothing, all he did was be evil, not Jesus, but God. And I mean, my prayers went nowhere. I mean, I never even got taller or skinnier. I was still short, obviously, because genetics, you can't, but, and I'm fine being short. But I mean, I was like, every prayer I prayed for, whatever, never get answers. And, I was broken, poor, struggling and single and destitute, and, why? So I was done. And, I didn't get no results. And so I went back to, I think that's when I started checking out again other religions, like it wasn't giving me any results, like Wiccan. And I think that time I checked out Wiccan. The first time I did the voodoo thing, they didn't know results. Second time, I said, let me do Wiccan, whatever. But I went to San Fran to see a friend, and we went to the Winchester house, back to the Winchester house. And they say, don't take pictures. I took pictures, because why not? I mean, I didn't believe all that stupid, superstitious voodoo ignorance. I did know that when I was in Florida years ago, before my dad passed, I'm so out of order. I took I went, of course, to New Orleans. When I left Florida, I went to New Orleans, and I went back to DC via Nashville and so forth. So when I was in New Orleans, of course, I went sightseeing everywhere, and I went to this voodoo and checked out some voodoo museum, and the guy was going to give me some type of charm. I don't know what it was. And at the time, I wasn't anti-God. I still, I did go to church once while I was at Disney, but I wasn't anti-God. But I do know that he helps me out. And so I wasn't going to disrespect him by getting a voodoo charm. I'm like, well, thank you so much for the offer. I really appreciate it. But I don't want to disrespect. I always said the angels for helping me out, because they said God looks out for the poor, the old. They said God looks out for the old, the young, and the retarded. If you're old, they look out for you. If you're young, he looks out for you. So I said, I don't, I'm sure I'm getting looked out for all three of them. And I don't want to disrespect, because, he had, that's kind of like saying I'm going to hire a security guard. But just in case, I'm also going to hire Guido also. I'm like, well, what is a security guard not enough? He's been protecting me for the past 6 months. Now you're gonna hire Guido? Really? A security guard be very insulted. I mean, if you're paying me to look out for you, and I'm doing a hell of a good job looking out for you, and you go hire somebody else, did I do something wrong? Tell me where I messed up. So I knew that much about, well, you don't want to disrespect. So I said, no, I'm not going to disrespect God and do that. That's just ridiculous. So I didn't, I appreciated the gift and the offer, but I didn't take it because I didn't want to insult God. And actually, speaking again out of order, with Disney, when I left Disney, I was kind of stuck in Florida for like 3 weeks living in my car. And this lady took me in. Now, again, like the whole time I wasn't even thinking about God, out of sight, out of mind. But what the week I was living in my car, I was hanging out at the Kinko's copiers, FedEx Kinko's, and living in my car. And I found this really awesome Christian station that I was listening to, and I was seeing all these billboard, God loves you, God this, God that. I'm like, oh, that's odd. What a coincidence. Here's a Christian station, and here's a God love you. Then the next day, the lady was like, you're still here. I said, yeah, I'm stuck. I just did a Disney intern, and I can't stay there no more because my internship is over. And the girl, I'm trying to get the ride, blah, blah, blah. So she let me stay with her for like a week, which I'm like, what? I don't know you. You don't know me. So yeah, I know it's crazy, but God wants me to help you out. Or something along those lines. I'm like, what? Uh, okay. And I kind of willingly because I've stayed at other places, but I just thought it was kind of different that out of nowhere, a cashier was like, you could come in my house because you're a female sleeping in your car. And, you know, and she was telling me about her experience. And she was a really nice lady. And then from there, I went to New Orleans, and the voodoo man offered me a gift. I'm like, I don't want to disrespect the angels looking out for me. But when I went to the Winchester house, I was familiar with that. I still am, but I wasn't superstitious like that extreme. Again, like my experience with the voodoo stuff, nothing happened. So I took pictures of it because I figured it was just, nothing, whatever. And when I came home, the demons started attacking me every night. I mean, that's the first time I started having, well, I guess technically I had sleep harassment when I was a child, and the moon, the man, the moon, and the frog, and the white lady coming into my room, whatever those were. But I'm sleeping, and I literally was having nightmares of literally straight up the Winchester chick. In my dream, she was fighting me, beating me up, and attacking me, and all this stuff. I'm like, what? And every night she was harassing me. And also, speaking of my dad, well, anyway, that's something different. Anyway, but she was attacking me every night, jumping me, and I was having these nightmares. And I'm thinking, oh wow, I guess I shouldn't take the picture. So then I ended up burning the picture because I said she obviously got mad at me for taking the pictures, but that didn't stop her from harassing me. And so finally, in my dream, I fought her back and I beat her up in my dream, I guess. Um, and that kind of stopped her. But I had other nightmare, sleep paralysis all the time. Starting from then, I would have all these weird sleep paralysis, and then like the following year, I moved to another apartment with another roommate, and my first roommate, who was straight up agnostic, she figured out that my mother was agnostic. Now, at the time we were roommates, I wasn't going to church. I was still mad at God. I mean, it was like out of sight, out of mind, doing whatever. And that's when I was checking out Hare Krishna and all that other stuff. And she was agnostic, and her family's Baha'i. And so that's whatever. And then she became a Christian, which I thought was, oh, that's different. And she told me her testimony. And I'm literally telling her about, well, I believe in the power of the spoken word and move this. And I was doing that L. Ron Hubbard Scientology and all these different things. And she's like, oh, well, and like we was going somewhere, we're going to, oh my gosh, shut up. Sorry, the loud. And so we were going somewhere to a sight and sound theater. And I said, traffic, move. Because we was in a parking lot. I said, move now. And they started driving. I said, look, it listens. I said, it listens to me. And so I don't know, but then she was really into the Christianity, and she was doing a fast, and she was getting instant results. So I kidnapped her and said, you're going to pray for me to get a job. And she wouldn't pray for me otherwise. And so I kidnapped her. And then once she prayed, I dropped her off. And by the time the next day, they say, can you come to work? I said, oh my gosh, I got a job the next day. She's getting instant results. Then she started taking me to her church, and I still was mad at God, and I was complaining to this one lady. I was like, well, God, this and that. She said, well, God gave you life, God. I said, thank you, but we were born, that was something no one, I mean, I don't know if we requested it or not. She said, well, God gave you sight and sound. I said, well, you're supposed to have that. You're supposed to be able to breathe and sit and stand. That's why when you're normal. When you don't have it, it's because it's a problem. And why would he make you messed up? Why would he make you born screwy? If, she tried to explain it to me, like, because this world is everywhere in the universe is damaged. Nothing is perfect. And I'm thinking, well, then God, he screwed up himself. And she's like, no, he didn't screw up. Man screwed up. And she was giving me the Christian answers, but I was like, yeah, whatever, if this person is screwed up, it's because God didn't let them be born normal. If they're screwed up, it's because he screwed it up, or he's mean and evil, whatever it was. But and plus, but she was giving me all these reasons, and I was still angry as hell. But um, we went to this church, and the lady was a prophet. She was giving everyone a prophecy, and of course, I'm always the last one. Oh yeah, here you are. God's gonna show himself strong in your life. God's gonna reveal himself to you. And I'm like, that's not what I want, but okay, whatever. Because I wanted a husband. I wanted certain things like, you know, financial freedom, a husband. I don't need God to reveal. What does that mean? What is this? And so I was kind of like, what is this? I'm insulted. I was literally insulted at that prophecy. I'm like, first off, you ignore me. Finally, Johnny come last. I'm like the second or third last person she prophesies to. And she says, God can reveal himself to me and have a nice day in so many words. And I'm like, of all the things you could say, you forget about me, you ignore me, and then you could just tell me you can reveal me. Well, whatever. So I was kind of insulted to be honest. And then when I went home we spent the night, whatever, and I had this crazy dream of, and like I said, at the time I was checking out like all these different religions. And it was like in my dream, again, I'm sleeping, and it was kind of like creepy or weird, whatever it was, but I was sleeping and a dream. I woke up, you know, I literally woke up like I kind of like I did like when I was a kid and all the other times. So I don't know if I was really sleeping or not, but I woke up in the dream, and I woke up in the room, and it was dark. And then a marquee came through the window onto the wall, and it was like a marquee said, Jesus is the only way. And I'm like, what? And I'm rubbing my eyes like, what is this? Jesus is the only way. The marquee. And I'm looking out the window, and everyone else is sleeping. And I'm like, am I hallucinating? And it says, Jesus is the only way. And I was so tired, I fell right back to sleep. Um, Now, I'm sleeping. I'm assuming I'm sleeping the whole time. Then I woke back up again, and it was the same marquee, I believe, twice. Jesus is the only way. I'm like, all right, okay. Then I fell back to sleep, and then it was like a light. Well, and then this time I was sleeping, quote unquote, and the light came from the top corner from the room into me, and it touched my belly, and it was like a tractor beam from an alien or something. It was like a touching my belly, and it was sucking me up like a vacuum. And I'm like, what in the world? And I saw all these, it was a light, and inside the light was a bunch of numbers, the algebra, all these math equations, like every type of math equation you could think of. I don't know math at all, so I don't know why, but it was like all math. uh, like the whole light was filled with a bunch of math equations just floating in it. And it was pulling me up from my solar plexus in my belly. And it felt like a roller coaster going down a hill. It was tickling me. And I kept laughing, like, oh my God, this is tickling me, pulling me up from my belly. Like, when you fall down a roller coaster or on a car, your belly's tickling. So I felt like that, like going down a roller coaster, tickling my belly, and it's pulling me up. And somehow it was hard for me to breathe. And I'm like, what is this? So I was laughing because it was tickling my belly, but it was kind of terrifying me. I'm like, what the hell? And it stopped, and I fell back down, and everything was normal. And I looked around, the room was silent. And I'm like closing my eyes, trying to go back to sleep. And I fell back to sleep, and then did it again. It sucked me up. And I'm like, what in the world? And it didn't take me out of my body. It was just kind of like pulling me, and it fell back down. I'm like, that is weird and kind of disturbing, but whatever. It said Jesus is the only way, no questions, ifs, ands, or but. And then when I thought about it, I'm like, well, all these night terrorists, the only one they listen to is Jesus. And I've seen that on YouTube or different places say, well, if you're having a nightmare, just say, Jesus' name. And I think I learned, that's when I learned it from a little after that. They say, if you have night terrors, or like shortly after that, I learned that, you could say the name of Jesus, and no other name will the demons leave. And I'm thinking, is that so? And I said, I'm gonna test it. I'm gonna test it on Buddha's name or Muhammad. I'm gonna test it out. But then every time I have a night terror, which happened all the time, they was always like entering my room. Like I'd be sleeping in the dark shadow, would open the door and come through my room while I'm sleeping. And I look up, and he's there, and I would say Jesus. Or one time I was sleeping, in a giant black shadow of a bat, a flying Mothman floating above me. I'm like, what? I just say, Jesus. I don't have time to test it. Because when I'm terrified, I'm sleeping and harass me, I just say, Jesus. That's it, that all, nothing else, nothing more. I'm not testing nothing at that point because I'm too scared. I'm not dealing with it. I'm not going to test it out on myself, because they were always like, harassing me all the time because I guess all the doors open I had. And so they were harassing me. And then I guess several months later, I was going to her church and I've had this other weird experience. Oh, and I forgot to mention, like, I don't know, probably I had some other weird dreams. Like one dream I had, and I'm assuming maybe 15 years ago. I don't know where I was at. And I was dreaming. And I was dreaming that I was in a lighthouse and there was a thunderstorm and it was horrible and it was raining and some demons and ghosts and horrible people in the lighthouse. I had to leave because I'm like, I'm not staying in the lighthouse with these monsters. So I left the lighthouse because I didn't want to get attacked because they were chasing me. But then outside was like thunder and lightning, and I was in the middle of, and there was like waves, like in the book, but Peter, wherever it was in there, like there was waves, you couldn't control it. So I was either going to be struggling outside the lighthouse, well, in the waves, or getting attacked by the monsters in the lighthouse. And then Jesus scooped me up. And I don't know where he was. I don't know where he was at, but he came out of nowhere. He scooped me up and he was holding me like a little baby or a kid. And I was holding him around to him and he just held me. Now, and at that point, of course, they weren't going to touch me because whatever. And it was still raining and the waves were still going crazy. It was still wow that I was in his arms. So I was fine. I felt as long as I was holding on to him, which I held on tightly, and he held to me, and we were steady. I don't even, I was fine once I was in his arms, and and that was that dream. I remember that dream, and I had another weird dream, um, after this experience that I'm about to go into, where I was, before I moved up to New York several years ago, and I was dreaming. I always have crazy dreams. This dream, I was like, I don't know what was going on beforehand because you never know how it started, but I was basically in Virginia. I was lucky enough to have a husband and a child, maybe two kids. And I was in Virginia, and I guess obviously it was the New World or whatever it was. They had all these soldiers dressed in like riot gear in these Humvees and these buses collecting people. And so everyone was hiding and hiding. And I guess I was in Virginia hiding because, I guess the cities were already collected and taken care of. And so these were like the outskirts, like out in the Virginia, out in the will, out far away, like where I told you my daddy grew up, because it was a farm with a lot of animals and all of that stuff. And somehow they found us still. So we all ran and found this underground passage and hid under these underground tunnels. And I guess we were there for a while and we was trying to get the kids to stay quiet. And it was us and a whole lot of other people hiding out in these tunnels. We were there for a minute, and then eating and drinking and surviving under the tunnels. And I don't know, maybe we were there for a month or so. And then they found the tunnels and they started collecting everyone. And they separated me from my husband and me from my children. I think I had one kid and my husband went one way and the other kid was somewhere else. So we all got separated and everyone else got collected. And so I was really, really angry and fighting. It was just collecting us and throwing us in, almost like in the movie The Handmaid's Tale at the beginning, how they was collecting people and separating them. So they collected us and they all drove us. I don't know where my husband went from there. I don't know where my kid went from there. I just know I was with one van and they took us and we went into a prison. And I'm assuming that's where they went to. So all the people that was resisting and hiding out in the woods, and then ran to the tunnels and hid there. Got found and collected, and we was hiding out, and then we're in prison. And obviously we was in prison, it's about to be beheaded, literally. And it was and I probably saw a movie, which is why I'm thinking dreamt that. I'm assuming because we were in like this prison, and then they was calling in one by one, they was collecting people. And so somehow, I don't know how I got out the prison, but I guess they went to collect me. I escaped and I came back with one of Ali Akbar vests, blow up vests. I said, if I'm gonna go, I'm gonna take a whole bunch of people with me. So somehow I got the vest and I went back to the main door and they looked at me and I, pushed the button. The next thing, basically explode and kill everyone, including myself. And next thing I pushed the button before they could stop me. And I guess it went white. I didn't feel the next thing I know, I pushed the button and the next second I'm laying on grass. And I'm like, oh, I'm hanging on. And I wake up, I get up off the grass because I wasn't really sleeping, trying to figure out what's going on. And I look around and it's like I'm on a mountain. I'm up high on grass, and I could look down off a cliff, if you will, and see the earth or see what was going. I could see the city and see everything that was going on. But I'm up here, and I'm looking down at what happened. And then here comes my Siamese cat, Lady Precious Saga, also known as Fat. She came to greet me. And she's passed away since then. But at the time, she was still here, and she greeted me. And I'm like, Fiat. And I gave her a big hug because I was so glad to see her. And I thought that was honorable that she came to greet me, because she was like when I got her, I felt like she was my first. I call her my firstborn because she was my first cat. She's not my first pet though, but I had like all these endorphins go off, like, oh, this must be how mothers feel when they give birth. So I treated her like my baby. And and it was right after my dad passed. So I mean, so of course my Siamese, and she was so cute. My fluffy, chubby cheek Siamese came to greet me, and I followed her, and I saw my family and family and other animals were there waiting. We were all hanging out, I guess, in a heaven, hopefully, you know. So that was an interesting dream. And then these dreams is right after I had that experience with the marquee saying Jesus is the only way. I'm in my apartment by the college, and I'm dreaming, and I had a couple of dreams. And one dream was, I'm assuming looking back, it must be me seeing my verbal affirmations, but it sounded like I was speaking in tongues and saying verbal affirmations. At the time, I never in my life did a verbal affirmation, never did one verbal affirmation day in my life. I didn't even know what they were. I never made one. I never did one. I definitely didn't say it that aggressive. That I was dreaming about whatever. Oh yeah, one time I was dreaming about a giant octopus monster attacking me, whatever. I don't know. I had all types of horrible, weird dreams. But this dream, I was dreaming that I was I'm sleeping, and then I start dreaming about, literally it was me. I'm in my bed. I wake up in my bed, but I'm kind of sitting up in my bed, if you will, or laying it, and I look up, and literally I'm standing over myself, speaking proclamation. I claim pre-prophesy, redeem, declare you will have life. And I was speaking life and healing and success and wealth. And, you know, I was speaking all these verbal affirmations over myself. And I was looking, and I looked in my eyes, and I looked at my face. I'm like, that is me. And I'm speaking life and verbal affirmations over myself. That doesn't make sense. I don't know what that meant, but, and I'm speaking it very forcefully. I'm speaking it very aggressively. And I was speaking it so forcefully and aggressively that I literally, while I'm sleeping, I'm in bed, looking, like I said, I'm in bed looking at myself, lean over me, look at me, look down at me, and speak verbal affirmations and proclamations upon me. And I'm doing it so powerful that I've never done before. And then I'm doing it so much that I literally in bed start doing it. And I start speaking and repeating it and speaking in tongues, which I've never done before. And I'm speaking in tongues. I literally woke myself up out of my sleep, speaking in tongues. I woke myself out of that dream, speaking in tongues. And then when I came to it, I came to alertness. I'm like, what the heck? What is this? That was the weirdest dream. And then the next time I dreamt, I was another weird dream. I was dreaming that it wasn't even a dream. Another time I woke up, and whatever it was, somehow I guess the Holy Spirit started talking to me. And whatever it said, I forgot how the conversation started. But I must have, of course, went, well, you're horrible, you're mean, you're evil, blah, 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 blah. And at this time, I'm half asleep, half awake, but I'm still holding that conversation. I'm sure God answered those questions. And then when I woke up, then I was talking so much, arguing. I was arguing so much, I woke up consciously, continued. I'm like, hey, and I'm like, I said, you're so evil. You kill all these people. You kill babies. You kill he said, there's a difference between death and love. Because he said, I guess a conversation started about Jesus is love, or I'm love, and I'm love. I said, how are you love? You're horrible. You're mean. You kill people, blah, blah, blah. He said, there's a big difference between death and love. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. That means nothing. How is there a difference between death and love? And I woke up and I started debating Jesus. But he said, open up the book, open up the Bible. And I'm like, whatever. And I'm in bed debating him because I was angry. And I'm thinking, am I going crazy? Why am I arguing with myself? This can't be the case. who is this person saying they're God and love in my head? Why am I talking to some invisible voice in my head? And he kept saying, read the Bible. And so I was like, okay, fine, whatever. So I was ignoring him, arguing. Then I finally got to the Bible because he kept harassing me. And when I opened up the Bible, the first thing I opened it was the book of Acts when they're talking about the Holy Spirit and praying and speaking of tongues and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh. And I thought that was weird. So that was kind of like my experience from there. Now, of course, life happens and I get distracted on a continuous basis. And that was back in before 2010, because then my mom got sick. And right after I moved to New York, she got sick and had a stroke. And she was on life support. So I was praying and fasting and begging God. And I guess, like my friend said, she said, you can't go against someone's will. And she was kind of suicidal forever. And so I was really, but she passed away. But I was really mad at everyone. I was mad at my mother for not trying. I was mad at my family for asking me to pull the plug. My mom wanted to, she didn't want to be on life support. But of course, I'm like, no, I'll do everything. So I kind of went against her wishes. But of course, I wanted her to get better. And so I kept trying. It was extremely exhausting. But I tried everything under the sun and she didn't get better. She just kept getting worse. And so I was mad at God again. I was mad at my mother for not trying. I was mad at my family for telling me to pull the plug. I was just mad at everyone. And so I ran away up here and this is my escape. But yeah, it's always something that's my testimony so far. And I think I've been on a Zoom for about 300 hours. So anyway, my throat hurts and I know I ranted everything and it was not in order or succinct. So, but yeah. Okay, thank you. And bye bye. Let me close out of this lovely